My name is Paula Kearney. I'm part of the International Network for Formerly Incarcerated Women. I come from Dublin in Ireland, and I became part of that network I'd say about a year ago. And it was through a good friend of mine, Damien Quinn, who works for Spear Nua, and he introduced me to the amazing Sonny Jacobs. Me myself, I come from a background obviously of incarceration through addiction, trauma, and the usual stuff that leads us into it. But through that, I started to work in a project called the SAIL Project. Now, the SAIL Project is a women's recovery service in Dublin's North Inner City. Dublin's North Inner City would have a huge amount of socio-economic disadvantage, intergenerational poverty, intergenerational violence, all the issues that come along with drugs, addiction and incarceration. Because what you'll find in prisons in Ireland is that the majority of people in there will come from backgrounds like myself. It's basically like a conveyor belt of working class people from the same communities going in and out, and the recidivism rates are really high for people who do come from them backgrounds. So I got involved with a programme called the SAIL Project many years ago, and I was there as a participant of the SAIL Project. But a new programme started for people who had the intersection of substance use and criminality in their story. So I was there as one of the first participants of that programme. The programme is called the BREO programme. So the BREO programme stands for Building Recovery Inwards and Outwards, and it's a 3-tier peer training process. The first part is about working on a woman's self-esteem or self-worth, getting her to a place where she starts to feel good about herself. And then we go into the second part, and that's about skills development. So we'd work with the women to train them how to co-facilitate groups to other peers. For example, we'd go into the prison, up into the women's prison, and we'd do cognitive behavioural therapy groups such as reduced use. We do art therapy, we do a few different things with them, but we'll always bring a peer who has had the lived experience of incarceration with us. And that's what the BREO programme is about. It's about training them women. But I was lucky enough that through that programme and the experience I got the opportunity then to go back to university. And I went back to university. I did my degree in community development and youth work, and worked as a community development worker for a couple of years, worked in another drug service. But there was an opportunity for me. I actually stayed on university and then done a Masters in Human Rights and Social Policy. But an opportunity came along, the coordinator's role for the programme that I'd been in, BREO, came up, and now I work as the coordinator of that programme. And we just continue to facilitate that training, continue to build the skills of women who have the history of incarceration, and try and break them recidivism rates and get them on the path to assistance. So I love the work I do. Absolutely love working with women, and having that lived experience and having that understanding helps me to navigate my way through that work. But it's something I'm really, really passionate about. I'm really passionate about creating alternatives to prison for women, because I think putting a woman in prison is so damaging to the family, to her, to the community as a whole. Like, women are the backbone of their communities. Do you know, we're the ones who get up every day. We're the ones who make sure that the kids have what they need, and all the other pieces that go along. And I think a lot of times when we have women who use drugs, they're often seen as less than, and are stigmatised further than men are. And even like we'd speak to the women, like they'd have partners who'd be in and out of prison, but when their partner is in and out of prison, they're bringing them up their clothes, their money, anything they need. But when a woman is in prison, she's not given the same respects and she's not treated with the same care. So it's more damaging to send women to prison. And it's doing a lot of damage here in Ireland, and particularly in communities like the communities I work in, the communities I live in. Do you know, when a woman goes to prison, it's not just her that you're punishing, it's a whole family. So we need to start looking at alternatives to prison for women and just start changing things. I was never lucky enough to meet Sonny Jacobs in person. I got to have a couple of Zoom calls with her, and her insights was absolutely amazing. And I loved that project that she has, you know, around trying to change the injustices for people who are wrongly convicted. Like, her own story is amazing. Her own and her partner's story was absolutely amazing. And the death penalty in Ireland has been gone for a long, long time. But even after it had been gone at first, it was still there in the case of somebody who was convicted for, say, killing a member of the Garda or anything. You know, thankfully that's all gone. But as for the death penalty itself, I don't think it should exist in any way, shape or form. And am I saying that there is never anyone who is so horrific in the world that they should not be here? I'm not really saying that. I just don't believe an eye for an eye. I think they should be locked up for life if they're guilty. But the thing with the death penalty is it does need to be abolished because there's too many injustices. And particularly when you look at America and you see the stories and you read and you watch the documentaries about it, it's in many cases it's a racially motivated tool that has been used to convict, particularly in America, convict black men with very little evidence and women. You know, so we really do need to start looking at completely abolishing that across the world, because there's too many injustices, and the thought of actually one person being put to death when they're actually innocent is one person too many. So we need to start campaigning for that, and that's what Sonny Jacobs stood for. She stood for standing up for the rights of prisoners and making sure that the injustice that was done to herself will not be done to any other woman.